The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to the Blueprint.
Why they actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam.
Good evening and welcome back to the Blueprint. This is Lowe's Moore. Man, I'm really psyched, this evening. I took the show on the road. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, a couple of weeks ago. And, I did the show from there. It went great. I enjoyed it. It was exciting. It was beautiful in Charlotte. And then, I jumped in the car I did that on Sunday, jumped in the car on Thursday and went down. I was visiting my wife's family on the first part of the trip and doing a little house cleaning from my wife's aunt. And in about 3 or 4 days, we were able to, clean out a house and prepare for someone to move in. And then on Thursday, we jumped in the car and went down to Fayetteville, North Carolina, where both my brothers, Doug and Kurt, are in Fayetteville. And I had the opportunity to hang out with them and their families. And man, it was just awesome, man, just to kind of get away and break the monotony of what's happening in the pandemic. And then I was able to do the show in my brother's man cave, man. We just took the show on the road, man, and that was exciting. So, man, I'm glad to be back home, and knowing that we are going through this process of spring. I think we all jumped last few years. I think we jumped right out of winter into summer, right? And I think we're a little shocked that we haven't jumped right into summer right now, but it's going through, seems like, your normal spring where it's going to rain, everything starts to turn green. I see some of my flowers in the front yard starting to bud, and I'm always sitting outside watching them open up until they open up fully and taking pictures every year. And so I look forward to spring and I look forward to summer. And this is baseball time, man. When you get to April, end of March, coming into April, man, you get into what we call America's game, right? Baseball, right? And I don't know if I'm going to get right into it. I don't know if we have a picture. I want to show you a picture, because that's where I started. Before basketball, I started out in baseball. You see me there on my little minor league team. That's the crew from back in the day, man. I think I had a little bit of potential back then to play a little baseball. There I'm right there, man, looking mean, man, and getting ready to play, man. And I don't know if many of you guys know me, right? I'm sure my kids and my wife, my mom could tell you is one thing I never, I never hated. I hated to lose, man. I always wanted to win, but I hated to lose. And I got to give, a shout out to my grandfather, because, every summer, my mom used to send us down when I was younger, used to send us down to Plymouth, North Carolina. And, I didn't even know any different, but my grandfather was an avid baseball fan, and around where he lived, man, they was always out on the field playing baseball or softball, and we would watch on a black and white TV. We would watch baseball. We watched baseball all the time, and that's where I got my passion to play play baseball. And as I got older, I wanted to get involved with something that went all year round. And so that's when, I started playing a little football. Of course, our parents bought us the little football helmets, and the Jets was doing well at the time. And I don't want to tell my age, but the Jets was doing well, and Joe Namath was playing. And then I think Fran Tarkenton was with the Giants at that time before he was traded. And, but it was baseball, baseball, baseball. And, I couldn't wait. I got to tell this real quick. My grandfather came up and I was made the pitcher, right? I was made the pitcher and I was doing well in practice, pitching the ball well, throwing the ball across the plate. And my grandfather came up, man. I was so excited to pitch when my grandfather came up. And man, I'm sorry to say, man, I ended up losing, right? 18-0. I think everybody on the team got a hit off me. And man, you talk about a guy, man, who hates to lose. And man, when that game was over, man, I just cried. I just cried and cried and cried for hours, man. My grandfather was trying to console me. And I was like, man, I'm sorry, granddaddy. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm terrible, And then he went back to North Carolina and I got another chance to pitch. And I pitched a one hitter and we won 18-0. And so I made up for my 18-0 loss with an 18-0 win and had a decent pitching, played all around the different spots and had a great time. So we're going to be talking about baseball, family and baseball tonight. And so let me jump right into this. That's my story about baseball. And of course that time you see the colors, the Knick colors, and they're doing great. They're like won 9 in a row. I got my Knick colors and I got my Mets colors because I was a Mets fan growing up, man, with Tom Seaver, Bud Harrelson, because he was left-handed. And then there was Willie Mays. And there was so many great players on the Mets back then, man. And it was just awesome as a little kid to watch. I was pitching my little baseball cards and eating my bubble gum, man. So that's why I'm excited tonight to get a flashback and talk about baseball, talk about a game that I loved back in the day. So let's get started, man. I want to start off with the book of the week, right? When I was with the Boys and Girls Club as the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, went to a national conference for Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And so happened that Jackie Robinson's daughter was there, Sharon Robinson. And I have this book somewhere in my house called Promise to Keep. And she wrote about her father. She signed the book for me that at that time. And it actually, I read it a couple of times, man. It is a great read. So if you get an opportunity, man, to get that book, A Promise to Keep, it's a great read. And there are many great things. Jackie Robinson, a number of people have written about Jackie Robinson over the years. I don't know if you have that. I think I got a picture up there with 2 giant bronze statues right there. Yeah, I was in. This is my Jackie Robinson story. I was in Pasadena, California, visiting my son, staying in Pasadena, and in the late night we flew in, and next thing you know, I was asking my wife. I looked down this street, way down this street, and I just seen something down there, man. I didn't know what it was, and I was intrigued by it, and so intrigued that when I got up in the morning, my wife and I got some breakfast, and we walked down, and there was like 2 30-foot heads of Jackie and Matt Robinson, and all around in a circle, it tells the story of Mac and also Jackie. And you notice that Jackie, he's facing towards Brooklyn, right? They got a diagram that he's facing towards Brooklyn and Mac is facing towards California. And, the story of Mac and Jackie and all the things that they accomplished, if you can look in their hair, if you walk around, you see in their hair, everything that they accomplish is in their hair, in the back of their head and the top of their hair. It was just an awesome experience. And that same evening, I got a chance to see the movie 42. So, just an awesome read. And so now let me get to my word of the week is promise, right? Just like a promise to keep, right? Promise, right? Never make a promise that you can't keep. It's important to understand when I make a promise, when I make a vow, like marriage, when I made a promise to my wife, I made a vow to my wife, and here we are going 38 years, almost 39 years as a couple, right? So, hey, when you make a promise, you have to have the ability to keep it, right? And I always say that we used to shake hands back in the day, right? And then we used to say something with our mouth, right? And they said, we only as good as our word. Keep your promises. And then I have an affirmation. Yeah, keep your promise. I have an affirmation here this is the Hill and Pierce Harper, my good friend Hill and his son Pierce, started the affirmation and quote moment. It says, promise yourself to stress less, smile more, to have strength and courage, to venture out of your own comfort zone, to leave your past behind, leave your past behind, you and appreciate this moment. Most importantly, promise yourself always to live a life you truly want to live. Live a life you truly want to live, and put your past behind you and appreciate every moment. So I'm thankful for that affirmation or that quote. And since I was talking about Jackie Robinson, we're going to have a Jackie Robinson moment right now. They just celebrated Jackie Robinson Day. I think it was April 15th.
And what does the 42 mean? The man who wore it gave them the one thing that no one at the time could ever have done. He gave them equality, and he gave them opportunity.
Jackie Robinson's breaking of the color barrier for black folk was equivalent to the first man landing on the moon. He was literally going to be carrying 21 million black folks on his back.
First and foremost, and more importantly, is it brings attention to it because, everyone should know who Jackie Robinson is. He stands for a lot more than just baseball. I mean, even if you're not a baseball fan, you should be aware of what he means. Well, I wouldn't be playing if it wasn't for Jackie Robinson.
He's an honorable man who changed the perception of how people opened the gateway to play everybody to play Major League Baseball, and he's a great honor.
Jackie Robinson didn't fight back. He had to hold his temper, if you will. He was a very proud man, and he got the job done. And all of us are beneficiaries because of that.
He has as much to do with the civil rights movement, civil rights, not just baseball, as any human being that ever was a United States citizen. It's amazing what he did.
You realize how important he actually is. The most important person in baseball, without a question, and the most important person in American sports.
There's no way I could come out and pitch at Yankee Stadium and be pitching for my race, like the way that those guys were thinking about, the next generation and the guys coming behind them while playing the hardest sport in the world. Without these guys, there is no need.
Let's say he was alive today. He would be in his 90s. The things he might have been able to accomplish. Because even though the civil rights movement was moving in the right direction, think of all the things that have happened between 72 and now, and how his insight and what he meant to the community at large, how much work he might have been able to do if he didn't die at such a young age.
When you look at how far we have come since 1947, you just look around. Major League Baseball is now a worldwide entity. You have players from all over the world. And it all started back in 1947 on April the 15th. Thank you, Jackie.
Today, I think every American should say a special word of thanks to Jackie Robinson.
Wow, that's awesome. And yeah, just the awesome Jackie Robinson was awesome, man. And I'm gonna introduce I got two guests this evening, and both of them are members of the New York Mets staff. And I want to start out with Roy Smith. All right, we'll invite Roy on, and we're going to show a little clip of Roy right now.
Here is Mike Felder, switch hitting center fielder, batting left-handed, and Roy Smith, number 23, the starter for the Twins, delivers ball one. 1-0, Minnesota out in front. Felder, the 8th place hitter. Jim Gantner and Paul Molitor will follow. And Dean Larkin, the first baseman, takes that one.
Roy, how you doing, man?
Good, Lowe's. Good to be on here, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for coming on, man. And you know, quickly, I just got a quick question for you before we bring on Donovan here. Can you still get that leg up there?
That kind of came gradually. It's a way to keep your weight back when you're pitching. I certainly wasn't like that when I was in high school, but when I see pictures of myself, it didn't feel that that's how high I brought my leg, but it seems like every baseball card I had, that's what they focused on.
Yeah. So let's bring in Donovan Mitchell also. And Donovan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Lowe's. How you doing? Hey, Roy, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Doing good.
So before we get started, man, I want to ask you a couple of, talk a little bit about Jackie Robinson. And I know that each year, I only go to a few Mets games a year, but I'm always excited about the display that you guys have of Jackie Robinson. I mean, I'm always impressed, love reading the words, the memory of Jackie Robinson. Talk a little bit about, Mount Vernon had a little connection to Jackie with Ralph Brinker, being on the Brooklyn Dodgers as a pitcher with Jackie Robinson, a real good friend of Jackie Robinson. And so talk to me a little bit about Jackie.
Well, I know that I wouldn't be playing this game. I wouldn't be in this game if it wasn't for my grandfather, who basically knew a lot about Jackie Robinson and understood what he went through to get to this point. And it was more than baseball, like the preview that you had. It was more than baseball. He was civil rights. He was what was right in America, and it was about giving someone a chance, and he could not fail. He had to do it for America, but he was basically representing a people, a race that had been treated unfairly, and the things that he had to go through, the way he had to keep his cool and to keep himself together. He couldn't fail, and I think some of that stress might have, really hurt him later on in life. But it could have been anyone. It could have been Satchel, it could have been Josh, but I think they made the right decision to go with Jackie, and he held it down. And we wouldn't be playing this game today if it wasn't for his contributions.
Awesome.
It's truly mind-boggling what the man had to go through, and it's shameful in a lot of ways. Those I did not know this, but Ralph Branca was a pallbearer at Jackie Robinson's funeral. They were that close, I spent 2 years in the front office with the Dodgers, and obviously Vince Scully was around the team all the time, the great announcer. And he talked about Jackie Robinson a little bit. I asked him some questions about him, and he was very close with Jackie and his wife. And Don Newcomb, the great pitcher from back then, would stop him every once in a while. So, but again, the other fact not talked about was what a great all-around athlete he was. Played football at UCLA, played basketball, and I believe he ran a track.
Yes.
Donovan, I was thinking, as we were prepping for this, we don't do a great job holding on to, recruiting minorities in baseball as it is. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And some of it is the specialization in sports now, but would today, would we have kept Jackie Robinson in the game? Would he have gone to football or basketball? I was thinking about that as we were talking, because baseball was king back then, and it is no longer. The other thing is, it's a longer path to the pros in baseball.
It is. It definitely is. And, these high school, these young kids coming up today, you turn on the TV, you see the LeBron Jameses, you see the Donovan Mitchells, you see the right out of college, they're in the NBA or in the NFL. And it seems like it's right away. It happens right away. With baseball, we don't really show too much of the college game as much. And then when guys finally get there, it's 2 years, it's 3 years, it's 4 years. For some guys, it's 7 years in the minors before they finally get an opportunity. And, I think we need to do a better job of promoting the game, especially at the amateur level.
Yeah, no, and part of it's specialization. I'd ask you two guys too. I know it bothers me as a scout. I like to know that a kid played another sport. I think it grounds you. It gives you a competitive instinct that transcends. I know for me, playing basketball at Mount Vernon High, I didn't know how much it helped me until later, in my career in baseball, when I got to the big leagues and got to AAA, where the talent kind of evened out on me. And that wasn't the first time that I wasn't the big fish. By playing on those great teams in Mount Vernon, I had to live being a small fish in a big pond, and playing with those guys. And I didn't realize, like I said, when I had to start figuring things out, it wasn't the first time I had to do it. I tell people all the time, when I was playing there, games were the easier part. Practice was at times humiliating for me. There was 2 NBA players. When we ran that 11-man drill, I would hope that I didn't get the bounce pass on the wing, because that ball was getting pinned. There was no doubt about it. Coach Shore kept telling me, "Hey, you just go up strong, you lay it up." But I didn't realize how much that experience helped me later in baseball. It was very fascinating.
And I want to, before we kind of move on, I want to see if I can just pop this up here, because this is really the only picture I gave it to my son, right? Was the only picture I think at a auction that I bid it on. I bid it on some things in the past, right? I didn't think I was going to actually win this, win the bid. Because I was thinking, like, man, it got to be some rich people in here who's going to do this. But it was, for Jackie, farewell to 42. And, of course, Mariano Rivera was the last person to wear the number 42. And I was able to get this great, this great auction item. And I gave it to my son Isaiah. I had my wife just bring it down, man, because I thought it was appropriate, man, to have. And it's just a beautiful piece. All right. I'm not telling you where I live, so nobody can come over here and and try to heist that one from me, But so just before I asked you about your families, and Roy was talking about Mount Vernon, right? And Donovan, I promised Donovan tonight I was going to get him a Mount Vernon High School. I'm going to get you some Mount Vernon High School gear. Let's put it that way. And
there you go. There you go.
And Roy was talking about being on the high school team. So I think we got a picture of Roy on the high school team right there. And of course, if you look in the back, there go Roy right there in the back next to number 30, number 35. And then, Tony Frantino, who eventually coached with the Miami Heat when they first came in. And then number, you can't really see it, but I think it was like 43 and Rodney McRae.
43, Rodney was 43,
Yeah, and Scooter McRae. This was a great team. Eventually, my brother came onto the team, and they won some championships, man. But yeah, there go Roy, and he had some Mount Vernon gear on, right?
Yeah, I need that Mount Vernon stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
some t-shirts and some hoodies. I'm definitely rocking it.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna get you some gear. And then Donovan, when Donovan was little, young man, I remember him. I thought that somewhere down the road I was gonna get an opportunity to coach him, but he was a little guy then, and he came into the Boys and Girls Club program at the and basketball program for a minute. And I don't know. Hopefully, he had a good experience. The gentleman who was running at the time, Calvin Jones, we call CJ, little guy. He was about as big as the kids. Running it at that time, passed away just maybe a few weeks ago. He's going to be sorely missed. But the next time I remember hearing about Donovan, you called me up and said, "Hey, Lowe's, Donovan got a full scholarship to Louisville." I was thinking in my head, what did Donovan do from the time I seen him as a little kid? I was like, what? How tall is Donovan? I was thinking in my head, how tall is Donovan? What happened? But I was so proud, man. I know you was proud as a father, but I was proud, man, because that was awesome, man. I was telling everybody, I said, Donovan he got a full scholarship because we are always pushing for our kids, right? It's particularly to be good student athletes and position themselves if they have a gift, right, to go to college, man. And that I'm sure that you were proud, and that's awesome. So both of you guys, I'm gonna start with Donovan, but both of you guys talk about the importance. One of the things about the blueprint I talk about, right, because everybody has a blueprint. One of the things I talk about in the blueprint is the importance of faith, the importance of family, the importance of faith, and the importance of education. So Donovan, talk a little bit about that in terms of your parents, growing up and into, fatherhood.
Well, I grew up, my mom I didn't stay with my mom. I stayed with my grandmother. And, sometimes you're put in certain situations as a young kid that you don't really understand right away. And, for years, I didn't understand why I wasn't with my mom. But, after talking with my sister and really just starting to understand myself as an adult, I understood what my parents had to go through. So I understood my mom a little bit more as I got older in age. As far as family's big for me. And the one thing about the game of baseball, and even though I wouldn't change it to this day, it took me away from family. It took me away from my friends. It took me away from my kids. It took me away from my wife at the time, for 6 months out of the year. And, every time I came home, it was like trying to catch up. So that relationship that you're looking to build was always severed because of baseball season. And as much as I had this dream of being a major leaguer or a major league coach, it never really allowed me to really get into that fatherhood like I really, really wanted to. So I think as much as I love the game, I really understand that, it takes a strong family background. It takes a lot to keep that family background together. And I have to give a shout out and say that, when I was away, Donovan's mother did an outstanding job of keeping that structure there when it wasn't easy. But when I came home, one of the things I made sure I did was I made sure I would go to each game that Donovan or Jordan had, or make sure I would be at recitals, or make sure that I would be at plays, because that was important. And to let them know that, hey, I was there, even though sometimes it's hard. But it was tough. But you know, my kids mean the world to me, and they both know it.
Wow, awesome. Roy?
Well, in terms of faith, the people from Mount Vernon listening, my parents were both born in Mount Vernon and attended Trinity Church on the south side and got married there. And then they settled in Fleetwood. So growing up, I attended the Church of the Ascension, the Episcopal Church over on Prairie Avenue.
Yes.
I got confirmed at the Cathedral of St. John of the Divine downtown. So my father was very active in the church. Really loved the church community. Was the superintendent of the church school on Sundays. Was on the vestry. My mother was in the bell choir. My sister and I both sang in the choir. We were both acolytes. So that was very important to me growing up. And you know, I was lucky. You know, listening to Donovan, I almost heard my father talking. I was lucky. My father passed when I was 19 years old, but I had the best father in the world. His father didn't attend his games, and that always hurt him. And he was determined to be a better father to me and my sister than his father was to him. So we were the beneficiaries of that. So I've always considered myself very lucky. My mother was, you know how mothers are. My mother's the best in the world. So that has always been very important to me. You know, them supporting me during baseball, and then, you know, Donovan, speaking of the time away from your kids, I got married not until my 30s. After I played 1 year as a married man. There's no way I would have been able to handle, you know, being married and fatherhood while I was playing. And then, you know, we made the decision not to have children because, you know, part of it was a decision on both of us. But the thing about baseball is it's not, you can't do it halfway. You know, you're either all in or you're not. And it's just been part of my blood. And I have no regrets. But Donovan, I know how difficult it must have been because I just accepted the fact that I wouldn't be able to do it. You know.
Yeah, and real quick, just, you know, I remember going out to Utah. I think it was last year, and I was sitting down with Donovan. We were talking, and I asked him. I said, "Do you think I was disappointed that you didn't stick with baseball?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Donovan," I said, "you got to remember, during baseball season, I wasn't around, so I really didn't get a chance to watch him play baseball. So I was happy when he chose basketball because I knew I would be able to see him. If he would have got drafted playing baseball, you know, unless they were playing the Mets, I wouldn't be able to see him. So I don't think he knew it, but when I told him, I was like, I was so glad that you chose basketball and was what you wanted to do, because I think I probably saw him play 2 or 3 baseball games in when he was at Canterbury Prep and maybe one game at Greenwich Country Day.
I mean, my wife was a flight attendant, so even now she can fly wherever. Well, she doesn't fly to any small minor league cities, but she flies to San Francisco and LA. You know, but it's helped. You know, it's helped a lot, and I definitely can relate to what you had to have gone through.
Yeah. And Roy is visiting us this evening from Arizona, so he's 3 hours. You know, it's probably nighttime here, man, and daytime here. And a different kind of weather too. I'm worried about spring there, you know.
I'm alone in a hotel room, which is going to be pretty much my existence through the summer.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that is a tough a tough experience. I was coming to the close of mine. You know, when I got married. You know, I was still I was playing in the CBA, and my wife and I, you know, got married, and we had my oldest daughter, and then while in Albany, we had another daughter. She was young, and so I was still on the road. It wasn't an NBA season, right? It wasn't an NBA season, but you know, it still hurt. not to see your wife and not to see your kids and, stuff like that. And I was very fortunate because my career had ended, by the time my kids got really into elementary school. Right. And I had an opportunity to, when Phil Jackson got the job with the Chicago Bulls, I interviewed for the job. And so I had a lot of opportunities to get in the NBA because Sat Sanders, right? Sat Sanders with the Boston Celtics, he was in charge of, prepping guys for NBA coaching. And he used to call me up every year, ask me if I was still interested in coaching in the NBA. And so the decision to go home to the Boys and Girls Club and become the executive director over a coach, because I had first researched it. I asked Phil Jackson, Bill Musselman, George Karl, talk to me about coaching. And every one of them talked about not knowing when their kids started to walk, when they graduated from elementary school. I mean, all those things. And see, I grew up in a single parent home, so my dad was never really there. Right. So it was just easy to make the decision to come back home and go to the Boys and Girls Club, because I see everything. I seen everything my kids did. I was at everything. And I'll tell you, that's the greatest blessing in the world, is to see your kids grow up. It's just awesome. So talk to me a little bit about, getting into baseball. Talk to me a little bit about education. Did you have to go to college? You went straight into baseball. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of education and the experience that you had.
You want to kick it off, Roy?
Yeah, kick it off, Roy.
Well, I mean, I signed out of high school. I was a high pick out of high school. So it was a little bit of a tough decision because I had signed my letter of intent to go to Stanford. And, my father, kind of represented me. It was way before the big money in the draft and stuff. And, we put a decent number on buying me out of college. In the end, I decided to sign with the Phillies. But one thing I'm extremely proud of is I attended college in the off season. And I kind of, it took me about 10 years, but went to intercession classes at Iona, attended one full semester at Fordham, and then the people at Mercy, I found out they had quarters in their night school. So I just kept plugging away. The people there were great, and I wound up getting my degree right about the time that I finished playing. My first year scouting, I did the Northeast for the Pirates and for the amateur draft, and I got my degree then, and actually ended up halfway to my MBA when I moved out to Arizona when the Pirates asked me to move. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. That I talk to kids about that all the time. My father constantly talked to my sister and I about having options, and that's the most important thing. Create options for yourself, not, so where you take a job because you want to, not because you have to. And that was drummed into our heads. And now, I was motivated from, I think it's fortunate I grew up where I did, because the guys I grew up with, while my career was winding down, they were working on Wall Street, now making big money, and I was getting out of, or possibly getting out of baseball, having to start at the bottom, and that was a motivator for me. I didn't want, not that any job is menial, but, not strive to be the best I can be and have somebody point at me and say, he could have went to Stanford, So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. And before Donovan goes, my wife wanted me to tell you she was proud of you, man, Roy. And you did. She said you did Mount Vernon well.
Well, thank you.
That's Mount Vernon well. So
that's important to me.
Donovan.
Yeah. Well, I started, I went to Hamilton High School, a small school in Elmsford, and was lucky enough to get a chance to go to University of North Carolina at Charlotte, where, and I always tell this story, and I make sure I tell this story to the young kids. I was a subpar student. Got to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and it wasn't like Hamilton High School where there was 10 to 15 kids in the class. I was in a lecture hall. I was in there with 60, 70, 80 kids, and it wasn't about raising your hand, getting that one-on-one attention. It was more about making an appointment with the professor, go and see him. So I was a big fish. I was a small fish in a big pond, or vice versa. So school intimidated me. I ended up nearly failing out of college and lost my scholarship and just really struggled. My baseball coach told me that, hey, if you get your work done and get a chance to come back, we will up your scholarship. And I got to give a shout out to Gary Robinson, who kept his promise, because I hit the books like I've never hit the books before, got focused, got myself back in. And 2 years later, I was drafted by Houston. When I finished my baseball career and started working in the front office with the Mets and coaching, I ended up going back to Drexel University to try to finish up. But it's been important. Like Roy said, it opens the doors. It gives you options. You want to be able to tell someone no rather than them telling you no. And any young youth team that I talk to, any team that I coach, I really talk about the importance of education. I remember when Donovan was being recruited by a lot of schools, the first thing these coaches were saying to him, they didn't ask him about your defense. They didn't ask him about how he dribbled the ball. They didn't ask him about anything basketball. The first thing they said was, how are your grades? So, and I used to tell Don, and I don't know if he remembers this, but I said, how can you no one can stop you on the court, but you're going to let your English teacher stop you? I said, that's the only person who can stop you. So, and it was really pushed. His mom ended up working at Greenwich Country Day. I ended up working up at Hamilton High School as a permanent sub for about 13 years. So I was able to be around a lot of the kids and really talk education and talk sports and everything that I had gone through. So it's really important, and I was able to give back to my community by being there. And I actually had a chance to coach basketball in Hamilton. That's where I met your wife, and she told me how to coach a girls basketball team. Some of the things that she was telling me I can't say on the podcast, but it was awesome just getting to know her and to understand how to coach girls basketball as well as boys basketball, and the importance of having a male figure in their lives, and especially a Black male figure. And I was able to do that, and I was glad I was able to affect some lives.
Man, I'm proud of you, Donovan. You said you coached the girls?
Yeah, I coached, I think it was 4 or 5 years. And I actually, I remember we were 0 I hate to say it, we were 0-17 in the Class D, and I think they only had 4 teams in that division. And the first place team or third place team would have had a bye at the county center. So I told my girls, I said, you know what? They're asking us if we want to play. I said, we're going to go play. So we took an 0-17 team into the county center. And I remember being asked by a reporter, why would you bring your team to the county center after losing all 17 games? I said, well, the team that we would have played in the first round, we lost to them by 5 points each. And I said, there was a game that we played against Ramapo High School where they beat us 68-5.
Ooh.
And I called practice the next day, and all the girls showed up. And I said, you know what? They need to be on the big stage for their parents to see. It's not about winning the game. It's about being on the big stage and saying, hey, I played at the county center. So it was great. The next year I had some really talented players. And I was actually named the coach of the year that year. So it went well.
Wow. Okay. Because I was with Coach Cimino for about 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife got the head coaching job at the high school. I said, well, I'm going to go help my wife out. It didn't last long. Girls were different. and my wife worked like an hour away, right? So I would say to the girls, all right, you know, coach is going to be here shortly. Why don't you start getting ready, right? And they sat in a circle and started having a conversation, right? Like they ignored me, you know, like they started talking about the boy or whoever they was talking about. I said, you got hear what I said? You know, Coach Moore's going to come in and she's going to start screaming if you guys are not getting ready, and you're not already ready when she walked through that door. And they just looked up at me and they kept doing what they was doing. I was like, man, so my coaching career with the girls didn't last that long, man. So, look, I salute you, man.
Lowe's, I'll tell you a quick story that that team that went 0-17, right before we went to the county center, what we did was we had our last practice in Hamilton. And what I did was I passed the ball around. We all sat on the ground. I passed the ball, and every person that had the ball had to tell something about the season. And it got to our senior, our captain, and she started talking, and everybody in that gym was crying. And I said, man, we just had a team cry together. So it was a lot different, but you know, I love that team, and it had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Roy, talk to me a little bit about what you are currently doing and how did you get in it, and you know, and how do you like it? I mean, you know,
it's been my life, and the transition from playing to what I'm doing now was almost instantaneous. I signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates and played AAA with them in 1993, and I won 15 games. I'd been to the big leagues. I'd gotten all my big league time by then, and they didn't call me up, and I was actually pretty perturbed at the end of the year. But I was 31, you know, and they were a rebuilding team. They didn't need a guy like me, but I actually criticized the organization at the end of the year, and they turned around and offered me a scouting job. So I had some feelers to go to Japan, and it's not like it is now. Back then, it was kind of like one agent that was getting players over there. And I got a little frustrated there because there were guys making big money that didn't have close to my big league time. So, you know, I thought about it. I could have hung on, had some offers to pitch AAA again the following year. But, you know, I thought, geez, I could go from a old guy to a young guy overnight, you know. So I took a job as an area scout, which meant I covered college and high school in the Northeast. My area went from New York City up through New England. After that year, the Pirates asked me to move out to Arizona because there was more players there and stuff, and the area had opened up. So I took that, and I just kept getting promoted. I got into the pro side of scouting, and then got elevated to assistant GM, which I was with the Pirates, and then with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you know, for most of the last 10 years with the Mets, I've done kind of special assignment stuff, big league stuff, kind of been a point man, and I do enjoy it. I love being at the ballpark. Even now, it's getting a little monotonous now. I can't wait for this, you know, to get the season going as it turns to the minor leagues. But seeing young players and trying to project on how good they'll be is still a thrill for me. It's still an interesting part of the game.
Yeah, it was great. Donovan?
Well, right now I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the New York Mets. It's a job that I took over or we started towards the end of June, beginning of July. It's a very important role for the organization. It's one where we're trying to make the culture at the New York Mets inclusive, comfortable for everyone to work in. And, you know, we've taken some hits in the media and everything else, but, you know, our new ownership is outstanding. I love the people that I'm working for, and they're all about making everyone feel included. Like everyone's a part of what we're going to do, and everyone's going to have a say as far as moving this organization to another level. And it's going to be my job to help out with, you know, maybe talk with our HR department about policies, talked to them about recruiting, talked about bringing in more diverse candidates to for jobs. So I'm excited about it. I feel like I'm in a position where I can make change and I can really help our organization. And I used to be in player relations. That was fun because I actually got a chance to go on the field and be with the players and still be a part of the game. In this role, I'm a little bit more disconnected from the players, but the work is important. And it came about when unfortunate situation with George Floyd. We felt that we needed to do a better job within the organization of being a little bit more diverse and more rounded and inclusive. And once this job came up, I jumped on it, and now I'm really excited about the future and what it holds for the New York Mets.
Yeah, and do you think? Well, it's you guys play. Well, about history of the game, so you both of you can talk about the history of the game, and or you wouldn't have made it if you didn't know a little bit or had some love about the history of the game. But and then also you played in a different era, when you guys played. And then what's the difference between, you kind of at the age where you could kind of three different eras, the past, the time you were there, and now. Is there a difference in baseball? I mean, you think is baseball different?
Yes, it absolutely is. And unfortunately, I don't know that everything's for the better. The emergence of analytics has been a great thing. I certainly look at the game differently in terms of what I value. So in that respect, it's only added to the information, and it's a very, very much a good thing. In the process, we've kind of homogenized things. Hitters only hit for power. We're only looking for power pitchers. And the game has devolved into what they call the three, Donovan, what's the three, not real outcomes? There's only three outcomes, which is a home run, a walk, or a strikeout.
Or a strikeout, yeah.
Yeah, three absolute outcomes or whatever. And it's not the game I grew up with. I don't know. Again, it's been an evolutionary thing. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody in particular, but it's not as an exciting a game as we grew up with. I think they if they did a little bit better job with the ball, I don't think anybody juiced. I don't think anybody juiced the ball purposely, but maybe it's just technology that's made the making of the ball better. But by deadening the ball just a little bit, I think that would help to where the athleticism comes to the fore more. The other thing that bothers me a little bit is because of the access to technology that we have, we've the ability to think on your own is kind of lost also. So what you lose is creativity. There were things that Tom Glavine or Greg Maddux did with the ball that analytics wouldn't be able to tell you, because they had to figure it out on their own. And I think, especially on the pitching end, that's been lost a little bit too, and that saddens me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that and I've been, and I don't want to say anything against the game, but I really think the shift really hurts a little bit. You're looking at guys who, and everyone says, well, why don't they bunt or why don't they hit the ball the other way? When we were coming up, we were told hit the ball where it's pitched. And now with the shift, pitchers are pitching us towards the shift. So if I'm a left-handed hitter, and now I got three guys on this side of the infield, one playing short right field, and I got a guy like Jacob deGrom throwing me fastballs and sliders middle in, it's going to be hard for me to hit the ball to the opposite field. Yeah. So, just like in basketball, you have illegal defense. In football, you have illegal shifts. In soccer, you have the offsides and all that. I think there should be certain parameters or certain rules set up in baseball to where you can't have 7 guys on one side of the field and you pitch to that side and tell them to hit the ball the other way. to be successful. I just think that's
Personally, that's my part of it that I would rather have changed organically. And being a pitcher, I just want to see those hitters adjust a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, you would.
but part of it is the way they're coached. It's all about efficiency, you know. And at some point, and this is no different than in the NBA, Lowe's, where, you know, you shouldn't have to apologize for hitting a single, you know. And it's just like in the NBA, you know, where would Alex English be in today's NBA? The great mid-range jumper, you know, the Iceman, you know. You shouldn't have to apologize for hitting it too, you know. You shouldn't have to apologize. You know, I love watching Derrick Rose because he takes it to the hole, you know, and he challenges the defense, but it's not taking it to the hole and automatically kicking it out, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're kicking it out for a guy that's shooting 20% from threes, it's boring, you know. And so technology and the striving for efficiency doesn't lend itself necessarily to excitement, you know.
Yeah, and you know, one of the great, I was just having a conversation with some former players that are now coaches in the NBA, and some individuals I know in the NBA, and they were talking about, you know, trying to find the balance between analytics and identifying whether a guy has the character and the heart to do something that analytics may not pick up. You know, like when you're looking to draft a person, you know, you're drafting that person based on the analytics versus, you know, whether or not that guy is something in a person's heart that brings them to the point where they will not give up on a game, or they know how to close a game so the analytics can't tell you. Right. And so a number of guys don't get drafted or don't get picked up because, you know, because they don't fit the analytics. And I think there has to be a balance between the heart, the character of a player, and the analytics. I think they should work hand in hand, but not one should dominate the other.
And in the NBA in particular, I miss the you know, where the big man is devalued. You know, the great footwork of Akeem, you know, or the beautiful sky hook, or McHale with the up and under. You know, that was beautiful to watch. You know, and I understand it. Like three points is worth more than two. I get it. You know, but is it more fun to watch? I don't know that it is, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, the game is, I guess in every sport, is based on entertainment. Who's going to come to the game and who's going to watch the game. So if it's not exciting, if it's not appealing to those who are paying the resources, you know, you can go back in the day with the Knicks. I mean, the league was down financially, you know, back in the day, but we were able to see all the picks. We knew the first option, second option, third option. We knew who the ball was going to go to. Right now is one-on-one, draw and kick, pick and roll. There's no play being called. You just give it to one guy, he clears out, and hopefully if he can't get it, he'll throw it to somebody who will make the shot. I mean, so it's a different kind of game. That's why I asked the question, because, you know, the older we are, we view the game differently, right? And it's hard for me to watch an NBA game all the way through. And I can watch certain teams because they play as a team, and you see that ball move and everybody working together. You know, I love to see that game that way. So,
yeah. No, it's no. Hey, look, I look like, you know, being a pitcher, I idolize the great starting pitchers. You know, I was a Yankee fan, but Tom Seaver was the guy. And, you know, watching those guys get deeper into games, and then adjusting as the game was going on. Again, that's something we've lost. And you know, not everybody can do that. I certainly wasn't good enough to do that. I mean, I had a couple of complete games, but, you know, I mean, these guys. But the great pitchers were what drew me to the game. You know, and the artistry that they had. I miss that part of it too in baseball. I mean, we have a guy in Jake DeGrom, and Donovan. Actually, if you look at what he's done, as many as he's striking out, his pitch counts are actually lower, which is, you know, one of the 14 strikeout games, he threw 95 pitches, which is mathematically almost impossible. You know, and that's just as hard as it is to believe. This guy's getting better.
It's incredible just watching him pitch. He just seems like he just has the game under control, and then he's getting hits in the game too. So it's like, man, what can't this kid do? So it's exciting. It is must watch TV when he's on the mound, and I'm glad he's on our side.
Yeah, that's for sure. we might actually keep our jobs.
and so what? I remember when I was towards the end of my career, one of the things I always wanted to do in baseball and basketball was to master the game. And so as I got older and my physical skills started, to somewhat diminish, I ended up in the library and I read a book. I picked up a book, and of course my early coach in Boys and Girls Club used to say the game of basketball is 99. After you're in shape and in condition and understand the game is 99.9% mental, right? And I read a book called Championship Thinking, and was talking about all the great thinkers in baseball. I'm trying to think of his name. He passed away, played with San Diego, I think the Padres, right? He was a great hitter.
Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn. And I remember the mental approach to the game that he had. Ted Williams. And they talked a lot about Ted Williams having the ability to slow the ball down and increase the size of it. And, he hit over 400. And do you see the game today? Is it playing? Is it more mental? I mean, you're just talking about the pitcher. It seemed to be more, his side of it is more mental,
I think it has, but I think, again, some of the thinking is being done for you. And I'm not saying that's bad, but with the access to information, guys are given heat charts of where pitchers pitch them. These kids today go up with so much more information, they really do. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But you bring up Tony Gwynn, and Donovan, you could probably speak to this as well. Would Tony Gwynn have been the hitter he was today? Or would they have said to him, no, you got to pull the ball more, you got to hit for more power? I suspect that may have been the case. I'd like to think a guy as great as that, or Wade Boggs, wouldn't have been tinkered with. And the guy that wouldn't have tinkered with him, that would have appreciated it more than anybody, was Ted Williams. But again, we're putting everybody into a box, and that's the part that bothers me. And actually, Tony Gwynn might have been greater today, because you certainly couldn't shift on him.
No, you definitely couldn't shift on him.
His bat to ball skills were off the charts. The way he stayed inside the baseball was unbelievable. So there weren't going to be any shifts with him.
No, he was able to put that ball wherever he wanted. It seemed like, he used the whole field, and if he wanted to, he could hit for power. And it's interesting, that question that you're saying. Would those guys be the same players, or would they be asked to do something different in today's game? And they probably would be. But as good as they are, they would have made those adjustments.
Or would say a guy like Greg Maddux be as good if you gave him a game plan rather than let him be Greg Maddux. Let him react to what he sees, as opposed to this is the way you have to pitch the guy. I always ask the question. I ask them to our analytics guys. What added value, what added weight do you put on a pitch, a particular pitch, when the hitter thinks something else is coming? That can't be calculated, and that's pitching.
Yeah. So how would you or what would you say to somebody? And there's a problem. I'll say this. I'll pose. It's a two-pronged question, right? And particularly for African American, I mean all players, but particularly for African American players, that seem to be the numbers have lessened rather than grown in regards to Major League Baseball, right? What would you say to convince them, this beautiful game of baseball, to keep them in it, keep them, have the patience to stay in it. And then, how would they train? How would you train them today to be baseball players in today's game?
I think it's important right now that you got to get the kids at an early age. You can't wait till they're high schoolers or, middle schoolers to get them into the game. I learned the game when I was 4 and 5 and 6 years old, and it stayed with me. And I found that I had the skills to compete. But I think it's really important that you have to start to have that father-son catch in the backyard. And those are and take the kids to the games. And then I think it's important. I think Major League Baseball is addressing it with the Players Alliance now, to where you're having more minorities or giving more opportunities to minorities. And I think you got to give them more of a chance, because you got to think about it. To get a real solid baseball glove, those gloves are over $100-something. The cleats are expensive. The bats, the Easton bats or whatever they're using now, they're over $200, $300 just to get started. It costs a lot. So you think about a kid who can say, hey, I don't have the money to do that, or I can go play AU, where they're going to give me the uniform. They're probably going to give me the sneakers. They're going to give me this. I can play it for free, basically, compared to playing baseball, where the travel, the hotels, and all that, it's a tough decision. So I think the Players Alliance is going to really try to address some of those needs and some of those issues. And I think Major League Baseball needs to also. We're doing something now with the New York Mets where we're doing equipment drives, where we're giving equipment to little leagues and, really trying to help these youth teams that might not have the financial backing. So these kids can play the game. And I think you have to start with them at a young age.
I can only speak to starting at a young age. With Donovan, you're so involved in, trying to promote the game and getting minorities involved. But that's so true. We have to get kids at a young age and get them. It's a sport that gets in your blood, and it's a sport of failure too, and that makes it difficult to keep the kids. But that's been over, that's always been the truth. But if we get the kids early, I'll give you, when I've talked to guys that I played basketball at Mount Vernon High, I know Joe, for people who are listening from Mount Vernon, let me give a shout out to my boy Lonnie Webb, who I saw just write something down there. But Joe Palmer caught me in Little League, okay? And I was talking to Joe. We were somewhere together not that long ago, and I said, Joe, God, I look at you now. You should have stayed with baseball. Not that he wasn't a good basketball player, a heck of a basketball player, but you were a catcher. Finding catchers is so hard. Finding African American catchers is even harder. All right, and that you would have had money to go to college. Now that's the other thing too, is scholarship money. Donovan, again, you can speak on that better than I can. But and Freddie Blake would have been a heck of a baseball player. He was a great softball player. But one of the things Joe said to me, and I know this is more prevalent today than then, was, Roy, I love baseball, but if I wanted to make that team at Mount Vernon High, I had to play all summer. I had to. If I wanted to be the starting point guard, it started, which Joe wasn't until his senior year because of all the talent we had. I had to do it. And the way basketball was in Mount Vernon, that was that's the king there. I didn't have that. I had baseball first and then basketball, but I kind of was able to look at it, from the top down. And what do you say to those kids, Donovan? What do it's become so specialized now that we've lost the multi-sport athlete, and that, that's true in the other sports, but it hurts us more because it's such a specialized game. Hitting is really, really hard. You have to hit to hit. You can't just show up,
And that is so true. The specialization of a sport. I know that I do baseball lessons now, and I had a kid at age 13. He was told that, hey, you got to make a decision whether you're going to play lacrosse or baseball. And I'm like, at age 13, this kid has to make a decision of what he's going to play for the rest of his life. I said, that's not fair. When we were coming up, we played baseball, we played football, we played basketball. I even played soccer. So I got a chance to play all different sports. And then I realized, okay, as I got to my senior year, I still played the other sports, but I knew that I was really good in baseball, and that was where I was going to end up going and playing in college. But now some of these kids aren't even touching a baseball or basketball or football because they're specializing in one sport. And I think that hurts them. And I think that, I look at it now with some of these kids, they're playing baseball January through December with these indoor facilities, these indoor workouts, and it's the winter league, it's the fall league, it's the summer league, and all these kids. And then you wonder why kids either get turned off from the game or they end up getting hurt.
Yeah.
Or they get burned out. I mean,
yeah.
That was one of the things, is that once my season was over, basketball season was over, we were back in the boys club, right? And we did everything in the boys club. We played volleyball, we played football, we did that, everything you could do in the game room. We kind of got away from the game, the competitiveness of it, and it gave us an opportunity to get in gym and enjoy just going up and down, playing with your friends, building camaraderie. And then the summertime came, and you had a few weeks of summer league, and then you break from that. I think it's overkill right now, and to become a specialist. I mean,
and you can't tell me that the skills that you learn in the other sports aren't able to use in the sport that you're the best at. I reject that notion. I talked a little bit about before how playing basketball at Mount Vernon High helped me mentally. When later, a little further in my baseball career, and playing with the high caliber guys. Seeing how Scooter and Rodney handled the notoriety that they had, the fact that they were marked men, which I was on the baseball field. I took on some of their personality. I think about this all the time. I never talked to my opponents when I played baseball. Where did I get that? Part of that was because both those guys, both the two brothers were quiet, and we kind of took, as a team, we took that personality on. Coach Rick Shore, who Lowe's played for, was as disciplined a coach as I've ever played for. And how many times did he say to me, Roy, do what you do best. Do what you do best. Well, later on, I'm hearing that from Doc Edwards in AAA when I started to struggle. Let's concentrate. I had heard it before, but it was from a different sport in a different way, but it still applied. Jake DeGrom, you can't tell me that he isn't as great as he is, partially because he played shortstop in college. That overall athletic skills, the ability for him to adjust, how in tune he is with his body, and the ability to make adjustments. That overall athleticism is universal.
Yeah, I think of it now as like, would I really have enjoyed baseball if I had played January through December?
There's no way.
I think I would have got tired of the sport. I remember in high school we had 18 games. We got rained out. There's a good chance we weren't going to make it up. So those games I cherished, and then it was off to soccer. It was off to basketball, and I couldn't wait to get back to baseball. But I think right now, with these kids playing so many games, if I screw up in a game, no big deal. I got another game tomorrow. Some of these kids are playing major league schedules. They're playing 100 and something games as youth. And I'm like, wow, what would I have done if I had to play 100 games a year and then train in January and December and November? I think I would have got burnt out, and it wouldn't have been as fun.
Well, the thing is that body of work that you're putting on your physical body at that time, somewhere down the road is going to impact you. It's like a 30-year-old guy is not a 30-year-old guy anymore. I mean, his body is older because he's put so much mileage on it. And,
exactly.
And then sometimes you started seeing these guys, you know, particularly you say, oh, but they only played 1 year, like in college basketball. They only played 1 year of college basketball and they went to the pros, and all of a sudden somebody's injured, right? But you're not counting the hundreds of games they played in AAU, right? Because everything is always winning, right? And there's never a time where the game is fun. I mean, you know, like I think Roy said earlier, and I think when I was younger, right, when I was playing baseball, it was something I enjoyed, right? It was hard, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I had fun with the guys I was around. I was trying to get better. The coaches were good coaches. They were giving us good instructions, but I enjoyed baseball, right? And then same thing in basketball. I really enjoyed it. I don't know that many people today, you know, I would ask the question, how many of them, is it a business or do you really have love for the game? My daughter coaches college basketball, you know, sisters college basketball. And I was talking to her about recruiting, right? And I was saying, you know, I think it's going to be hard because you can't analyze it, right? You can't analyze how much somebody loves something, right? But you have to find people who love the game, who want to go work out. You ain't got to tell them to go. they just automatically go. And because they love the game, they're gym rats. They're playing baseball, they're throwing the ball, they're catching the ball, they want somebody to do it with them. And you know, those are the kind of kids that really love it, not because they look down the road and I'm gonna make $1 million or I'm gonna be famous and you know, all those things. You know,
I always tell people that you have to, if you truly love it, you also love the bad part. You know, I used to. There was so long through my career, and even in Little League, I was always nervous before I pitched. But I never didn't love it. You know, I didn't want anybody else on the mound, but I was always nervous. But I realized that nervousness, once channeled, was a good thing. You know, because like what I said about loving the bad stuff, it can't just be when things are going good. You know, and again, I look back and I especially when I was in the big leagues, I always wished I was better where I wouldn't feel as nervous. I wouldn't feel as on edge. And yet when it's over, that's what you miss. You miss that living on the edge feeling. And I realized that I actually loved it more than I realized I did. That even when I got sent down or I had a bad start, I relished the challenge of coming back. It seemed like a chore at the time, but I didn't realize how much I missed it when it was over. You know, that nervousness. There's nothing that replicates that. Really nothing. You know, and again, I don't have children, Donovan. You know, the joy of seeing your son, you know, probably I would imagine, you know, is better than anything. But that I don't know that I did worry about that when it was all over, and I wasn't even that good. I can only imagine what the stars go through. You know, that are so addicted to it, you know, and I understand what that addiction is like, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Did we play against each other, Donovan? We played in with Danny Bernstein 3-on-3.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We played against each other.
Here I am, never playing higher than high school basketball, and here I am sticking Lowe's for.
Hey Lowe's, I was at the game when you hit the last second shot against Yonkers at County Center. That was you, right?
Yeah.
That was some scene after the game, man.
Yeah.
Guys were jumping off the
Madison Square Garden, man. We were like, gee, you know.
I'll never forget that.
Screaming. Yeah. But that was fun, you know, going in there playing a little 3-on-3, raising some money for
that was fun for you.
That was more for me.
That was fun for you. I think in the 4 games we played, I might have scored 4 points.
But you was out there, man.
Yeah, struggling.
You was out there, you know, and I've been out there. Again, most of us probably played a little baseball, so we got not that we were good. It was just a sense that we knew what to do. So I played in a couple of, softball games or baseball games, after I was playing, basketball. And, some of that stuff pops back in your head, but you're not very good.
Donovan, let me ask you something. When things got tough for your son, was there ever a point where he became frustrated with basketball, or maybe went through a shooting slump or something? And especially in high school, where again he's a marked man, and that pressure of having to perform, did that ever get to him? Did you ever reach a point where had to sit down with him and have a talk?
He's self-motivated, which I love about him, and his work ethic is unbelievable. It's funny because there were 2 times that I remember where he didn't play very well, and we one time was at Louisville, and we ended up going over the end. They have that rebound machine where it kicks the ball back out. So I remember sitting in the gym watching him shoot 600 shots because he wanted to get himself back on track. And then I think it was 2 years ago, they opened the season against Golden State. And I think he scored 19 points, but he didn't have like a great shooting night. And I thought we were going to go to dinner after the game. We got in the car and we went right over to the practice facility. And this is after opening night. And we were in there till almost 2 a.m. And I'm out there playing. I had shoes on. I'm out there playing, putting my hand up, trying to, play some defense on him so he could work on his shot. So he's always been self-driven, self-motivated. Sometimes I felt he'd be a little bit too hard on himself, but he has a great head on his shoulders. And I don't think he's ever really gotten to that point where the game's really kicked his butt that much. And I hope he never has to really go through that. I went through it as a baseball player. In 1994, I was playing in the Florida State League, and I think I was hitting 187 at the half point, and just couldn't get out of my own way. And those are the times where, you try to lean on, past experiences. And I ended up finishing the year at 240 to where I really got myself going. But, that I remember that to this day. And then the next year I ended up leading the league in hitting at 325. But it's like you said, it's the times where you really struggle that, kind of build that character. And I think whenever he's gone through his struggles, it's always built his character, and he's always tried to prove that he's better than that bad night, and usually comes out and has a good game or good night the next night.
Right. I got a couple more questions for you guys before we get off here. And I want to make a statement too, because you guys, you really dropped some nuggets. And I always say that on every show. I always mention my grandfather saying, "Come here, son, man. I want to give you this nugget." Right. And I'm like, what? I'm looking for something in the hand, but he really wasn't going to give me anything. He was trying to give me some advice. Right. And Dame Lillard and I guess Kevin Love on the insurance commercial dropping dimes. You guys dropped a lot of nuggets tonight and a lot of dimes. Particularly was powerful earlier when you were talking about family. And, if you're out there and you want to play sports or you're in sports, there's a risk and reward. There's benefits in sports, and then there's some non-benefits in regards to potentially in sports, everybody can get hurt. And, I know a lot of great players who got hurt in the beginning of their career, in the middle of their career. And that's a risk. And they're great reward. I mean, opportunity to be successful, famous, hopefully get some resources and stuff like that. But there are some others, some things like Roy mentioned and Donovan mentioned in regards to, being on that stage, traveling, being on television, but missing family, man. I think that was a very powerful nugget that we have to think about, man, that how much time we spend away from our families, right?
Yeah.
you know, how much I'm at playing with the Clippers in San Diego. My mother's in New York. My mother never missed a game in high school, and you think about, I went to West Virginia University. I didn't go to St. John's, although I wasn't recruited by St. John's, but I didn't go to St. John's, so my mother couldn't come around the corner and see me. So occasionally she got a chance. Becoming successful, there's some benefits, right? And then there's some not so good benefits, not like family, not being able to be there, see your family grow up and different things like that. But is there, and I know Donovan mentioned a person, but is there a person outside of your family that impacted you?
For me, it was my high school baseball coach, James Robinson. He was
him up there.
He was in my life as a father figure, and the good thing about it was, he treated me. He kind of knew what I was going through without having my mom there full time and not having my dad there full time. So, he kind of took me under his wing and pretty much helped me with my recruiting and everything else. So that's the guy. And when you think about what you were going through, what I was going through as a young kid, the community really held me down. Elmsford really held me down, and when the times got tough that we talked about, Roy, I would lean on James, but I also looked at all the people in the community who were there for me. When I really wanted to walk away from the game, I kind of looked at, I'm representing the community who saw me in the park playing ball, who were always there encouraging me. I can't walk away. I kind of owe it to them to do my best and to work hard. But that one person who was always there was James, and I owe him a lot. I thank him a lot.
Yeah, that's not the James Robinson.
That is the James Robinson from Greenboro.
We were rivalries growing up,
I know.
Yeah. I know he's over there. He can't put that hat on his head right now. He probably got a cigar, got his leg crossed. Yeah, that's my man right there. Roy, what about you?
Well, I'll people who listen from Mount Vernon will recognize these two names, other than my father, who's easily the greatest influence in my life. And again, he passed away when I was 19, but it's not a day that goes by I don't think about him. But for me, luckily, at 8 years old, when I first played organized baseball, Frank Bartolotta was my first coach.
Right.
And he was an ex-scout and unbelievable ability to teach the game. And the first organized game I ever played, that was my coach. So in terms of learning the game, he was the greatest influence. My greatest coach, not necessarily my best baseball coach, although he was a great baseball coach, was Tony Fiorentino. And I say that because he knew what made me tick and always held me to a high standard. Great coach, great fundamental coach, and a great basketball coach, great with the fundamentals. And, to be a good coach, not only do you have to have the knowledge, you have to be able to convey it. And he could put things in very simple terms. So, his impact on me in terms of baseball wasn't as great, but in basketball, I learned the concepts very easily because of the way he put it. But, he never yelled at me. Whenever he got annoyed at me, when I would get cranky on the mound and maybe get mad at the umpires or something like that, he would always tell me, "You're better than that. You are better than that, and you have and that maybe hurt me more than if he had yelled at me."
Yeah. And my final question before we get off here. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule and coming on. I appreciate it. The final question is, I'm sure there's a parent or there's some young person out there listening. What advice would you give them, a young person today?
You're talking about in sports or just in general?
I would say sports and in general, yeah, because not everybody's gonna play sports. They're gonna be a pro in something else, but they.
One of the things I always say, and I was talking to some parents today about school, and one of the kids was talking about, well, my mom and dad, want me to go here, and I said, you got to realize that, you're going to be at this school for 4 years. Mom and dad aren't going to be there for 4 years. This is your life, and this is the beginning of your life. So, mom and dad might want you to go somewhere, but you got to go somewhere where you're comfortable. I would say to the parents as well as the kids, whatever you do, whatever the kid's going to do, you got to realize that you're all in this together. Your kid's going to be leaning on you for advice. He's going to lean on you for this. It's a stressful time for them. So I would say that you're all in this together. So decisions need to be made together. But ultimately, that kid has to make his decision as far as where he wants to go. And it's got to be a family decision, but sometimes you have to kind of let your child find his way. And you can't guide and tell him everything. Sometimes they're going to have to find out on their own, but you have to be there to support and be there for them. So everything that your child's going to do, it's a family decision. It's a family thing. We're all in this together. Just like when I went away to play baseball, even though it was me playing baseball, my community was there with me. It's a family decision. And I would say that families need to have that talk before things are done. And if a kid decides that, hey, I'm going to play this sport, you got to understand there's going to be travel. There's going to be so many other things. It's a family thing. And I know that because when Dom was playing basketball, Jordan was in the car going to those games. So she signed up for something that she didn't know she was going to sign up for. But, it's a family decision.
Yeah. Roy?
Well, again, not having kids, it's always been a little bit of a struggle, even when I talk to kids. But I'd say two things. Again, what my father drummed into my sister and I, create as many options as you can. So you're able to do things because you want to do them, not because you have to. And I'll give you the other lesson I learned in a quick story. Bobby Cimino actually had tickets to Bill Bradley night at the Garden, and he called me up. I was probably the 10th guy he called, but he had an extra ticket, and I wanted to go in the worst way. And I said, yeah, pick me up. And I lived in Fleetwood. Pick me up. I can't wait. And then I put down the phone. I had a final at Fordham the next day. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just wake up in the morning and I'll study, everything like that. And the more I thought about it, again, my father wasn't around then. My mother certainly wasn't going to yell at me or anything. I was in my early 20s because I was playing baseball. I think I was 20. I was the one writing out the check for my college education. I literally wrote out a check. And I thought to myself, the only guy I'm hurting if I do bad on that test is me. It's not about pleasing your parents. It's not about pleasing others. It's about you. And the quicker you learn that, the quicker actually the harshness of life, that cold reality, it was so simple, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. If I do bad on that test, nobody's going to be yelling at me. I'm not letting anybody down but myself. I'm making an investment in myself. That's why I'm going to school. And I called Bobby back and I said, I can't make it. But it's so simple. I feel dumb, but that's when it hit me, that I'm on my own. And I have to, I have to like myself,
Right. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you, man. That was good advice, man. I appreciate you guys like I said earlier, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I enjoyed it. Right. I enjoyed it. Made me go back and think about baseball and how much I really enjoyed it and how much my grandfather impacted me in regards to the game and how he put that competitive spirit in me to work hard at whatever I put my hands to. And it was just awesome talking to you guys tonight, man. Hey, bring us a championship here with the Mets. And man, we'll be all good.
Oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Thanks, Lowe's, for having us.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Donovan, I'll see you in the office, buddy.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your support again of the BluePrint. Look forward to seeing you next week. We enter May. That's going to be my birthday month. I'm going to get a little bit older next in May, and I want to have some shows that talk about wealth and creativity. And I'm going to have some individuals on. My good friend Hugo King. I call Hugo. And there's never, if I'm feeling bad, I'm going to call Hugo. I'm going to call Hugo because no matter how bad I'm feeling, he's going to give me something positive. I mean, he's going to turn that thing around for me. And he's going to be on next week, and he's going to talk about some great stuff. So I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless you, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the BluePrint podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for